All right, welcome to the Appointing the Wise podcast today. I have Christine Nielson as a guest. She's running for city council here in Brigham City. Welcome, Christine. Thanks for being on the podcast. And here's what I was able to find. I did a little research before we we met. So you work for Foundations of Health and you do foot zoning there. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to tell us a little bit about what foot zoning is? Just, I don't know, a quick
Yeah.
60-second blurb.
Yeah. So Foundations of Health is my business. I foot zone, which is acupressure on the feet. It's kind of an advanced form of reflexology. So I'm a small business owner here in Brigham City doing the reflexology. I also teach foot zoning. And so it's technically have two businesses, the zoning and the teaching part. But yeah, that's kind of my work life.
All right, keeps you busy, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah,
Training and
it's really good stuff. I super love being able to serve people, help people. I'm really big into kind of the alternative health stuff, and so that's important to me to be able to help people that way.
Yeah, that's fair. Not to get too much into that, but that alternative stuff's starting to make a little bit more sense with the
Yeah.
past 4 years in our rearview mirror.
Well, and I foresee a time where access to medical care might be harder and harder for people to get, and this is something that people can learn to do and help take care of themselves and their families if they don't have access to other things.
So, like, it would be teaching people to help themselves, not like training people to do the same business kind of
It's both.
for both. Okay.
So, like, some people train and they want to they're focused on themselves and their family, and that's awesome. But there are other people who are, they wanna run a business or they just wanna be able to help other people. That's kind of where my stuff started. I really wanted a way to help people. I've been helping people online for several years for free, and people don't always take you seriously when your advice is for free. And so I thought, well,
Sure.
if I have a way to gain a clientele and people are paying for this information and this help, a lot of times they take it more seriously. And so I explored different avenues and foot zoning is where I landed. And it's been really good. It's really exciting to have somebody come in and be like, I'm struggling with this and see over time, see those things start to resolve and see them say like, I feel healthier, I feel more balanced, I feel better, I'm sleeping better, all kinds of good things. So I
So
love
is
it.
that like I'm intrigued. I wanna get into the
Yeah.
politics stuff, the city council stuff, but, do you have, like, a YouTube channel or something that you do that? You said you put it on
No,
online, so I didn't know if you had videos or just
no,
blog or
I
something.
I used to admin a Facebook group
Okay.
um about gut health and spent hours every day supporting people online there and um gained a ton of knowledge in that realm and then wanted a way to really help people in person.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see here. You have a degree in special education from Utah State University, is that right?
Yep, yep. Great school, great program. I'm really glad that I studied it.
And that's a bachelor's, right?
Yeah, it's a
Okay,
bachelor's.
bachelor's degree.
Yep.
Cool.
It's been, special it's been helpful with my children, my husband sometimes.
I get that. I was actually a teacher for 5 years. I taught, US history and, social studies, really.
Nice. But I also think it really helps me in interacting with people and understanding, like, not everybody takes in information in the same way, and that's one of the big things with city council. One of my big drives is communication and trying to help reach people where they're at in the way that they're going to get the information the best. Because I think that's one of our struggles is people just not having the information that they need to participate in our city the way that they would like to.
Fair enough. I'm glad you brought that up. We'll get to that later. What would you like voters to know about you?
I think one of my big things is I want people to understand I'm a regular person, right? Like, I am not a career politician. I will say when I was a teenager, I was like, "I'm gonna be the first woman president of the United States." This is the closest I've come, is making it through the primary for city council.
Gotta start somewhere.
Exactly. Watch for me, I'm gonna do something big. No. Um,
And Leslie Nope right here, hopefully. So that's funny. That's probably not as serious as it should be, but yeah.
no, it's totally fine. But I reached a point where in the last couple of years where I thought a lot of people are disgruntled with what's happening in their communities, but not a lot of us are doing anything other than complaining online. And I think civil engagement has dropped from what it was. I look at these groups, these civil groups in our community, and people are dying out in those groups, and there isn't a generation that's following and filling their footsteps.
Groups, not like Facebook groups, but
Yeah,
like
I'm talking
just
like
community organizations.
Kiwanis and Rotary and these groups that were civil service groups, and there used to be women's groups that women attended. There were all kinds of things that communities had that are dying. And so that's been on my mind, like, why are they dying? Why are people no longer in person showing up and participating in things together?
Yeah.
And I think 2020 and the advent of Zoom, which is fantastic in a lot of ways, but I think it killed in-person interaction
Mhm.
in a lot of other ways, where people are like, "Just give me a Zoom link. I'm not gonna show up to the thing in person."
Right.
And we're losing something
Give me a
that
quick
way.
TikTok clip, and
Yes.
then we'll see if it's worth my time after that.
Well, and really, we're a generation now of, like, give me the information in 30 seconds. Give me a reel and give me the cliff notes, which is good and bad. Right? But I'd noticed this decrease in civil engagement, and I thought, "I'm not doing any better than anyone else because I haven't been involved in anything." And so kind of what spurred this on was the last election for the county commissioners. I participated in that a little bit more, and I had people who were like, "You're asking good questions. You should run." And I was like, weird that you would say that somebody who asks good questions should run. Shouldn't we all be asking good questions?
That's the bar, huh? It's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you sound like you care about this stuff. Maybe you should be in charge." Is that it? That's all it
Yeah.
takes, huh?
Well, but really, I think that's it, is, like, if you care, jump in somewhere and get involved somewhere. And so that's kind of how I landed here, is just I was like, care, and I'm recognizing that somebody's gotta step in and do something. And if we don't like what we already have, then, this is me trying to do my part for the community. It's actually super cool that we had 7 people apply for city council, because that shows a lot of people were interested in, participating in some kind of change in our community. So that's kind of how I landed here, making a run for city council.
Perfect, thank you, and there's something I wanna say when you were talking, yeah, it just seems like I think we are starting to see a little bit of that. It's almost like we've let autopilot take over and be like, "Oh, don't like where that's going." And now I
Yeah.
think there's a feeling that's why I'm doing the podcast. And then I interviewed Phil and you, and I think there is that feeling that it's like this has gotten away from us. We kind of let it autopilot for a second, and now we're starting to see where that's gotten us, and we're like, "Oof, we need to do something else,"
I
or
think
we
that
need to be okay, right? If we're gonna complain on Facebook, we need to be willing to put our time into it, or
Yeah.
you
Well,
get
I
what you
think
get.
a lot of people are seeing, like, somebody's gotta step up, and everybody's been waiting for that to be somebody else, and now it's like, maybe I'm somebody else. And so that we'll see how that goes, but at this point, I guess I'm somebody else, and that's how I feel. I'm not affiliated with any big business or anything. I'm kind of the outlier independent person that is just here wanting to make sure that this community stays awesome.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you were saying, like, it's like I think this is the right term, the outlier effect, or not the outlier effect, this bystander effect, right? When something happens and it's one person, they're like, "Oh, I need to go do CPR," and when there's 12 of us, be like, "Can you do CPR? I can't do CPR."
Yeah, which one of us
And
is
now we're all like,
jumping
"Okay, that's
in?
guy is gonna die if we don't go do CPR. I guess I'm the guy who's gonna go try it. I did Boy Scouts once, and we'll see how that goes." Does that
Yeah.
sound about right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's awesome that more and more people are like, "Somebody's gotta do something. I guess I'm somebody. Let's jump in."
Let's see
And
what I can do.
yeah, because the more voices we have chiming in, the more people feel represented, and I think that's important.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Let's see here. You kind of already answered this, but if you want to explain or expound any more on why you're running, I think you kind of explained that. But is there anything else you wanted to say on that part?
Yeah, I just wanna I don't know. I'm watching people online, and I see a lot of concerns and complaints, and people feel really unheard, and I think they feel like there isn't anybody that is like them on the council, and I wanna change that. I hope that they can see, like, I'm just an average person in Brigham City, and here I am trying to do this. I wanna make sure that your voices are heard, and I wanna make sure that the council and the city are communicating back effectively, because I think there's I think the real problem is there's a communication breakdown, and so that's kind of one of my big things is, like, let's communicate more effectively so that people understand what's happening in the city and why.
As far as the things that you're seeing on Facebook, people complaining about, I know you've mentioned a couple of things. My questions were particular to your 200 words that you posted on Freedom City,
Uh,
but I suspect that some of that originated from this idea that there's people on Facebook who aren't happy, and the city either doesn't know about it or doesn't care, and we're not sure yet. So before we throw them into the lake, we need to know what they know about us and
yeah.
where things are at. And so, as far as what you've seen on Facebook, what are some of the things that either stand out to you and you're like, this is what I think, or these are the things I've seen on Facebook, and here's what I'd like to make a change on?
Like, the biggest concerns that I'm seeing, is that kinda what you're asking?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I think the number one thing that people are talking about right now is money, right? Like, we are all feeling the squeeze of inflation. Everything costs more. You know, your food costs more, your housing costs more, your gas costs more, and your taxes are going up. And people are super salty about the tax piece of that. I can't say I blame them. You know, I'm looking at my tax bill thinking this is gonna be hard. Like, this is gonna create some challenges for my family. So I really come from a place of empathy for those people who are really distressed about what has happened with regards to taxes. So that's that and the utilities, and those kind of go hand in hand because everybody's like, "The city is trying to rob me." And this is where I think this two-part thing of communication, and I think education is part of that too. The reality is things haven't gotten cheaper for the city either.
Right.
And
Inflation affects everybody.
yes, and I think people, so there's gotta be some understanding that, like, what are things that we can reasonably ask our city to cut back on, and what are things that we want to have enough that we're willing to pay for a tax increase. I personally think our city council did a pretty solid job this year working. They started out with a 15% tax increase and they worked that down to 4, which I highly respect that they worked that number down. And I know it took several multi-hour sessions to find ways to bring that number down. So that's, props to them for doing that. Um, the education piece, I think a lot of people don't understand that when they got their property tax bill, there were 3 separate taxing entities on there. Brigham City City Council has nothing to do with the school district tax increase. The school district tax increase has nothing to do with the county tax increase. They're all completely separate, and I think that's something that people don't fully understand. Not all, I mean, obviously some people get it and know and have done the homework, but there's a lot of people who are confused about, "My taxes are going up and, everybody's trying to stick their hand in my pocket." So I think the education piece of that is really important so that they understand, like, first of all, we're separate entities. Second of all, this is what we're trying to do. Like, the only thing I can impact are the things that city council has responsibility for. And so, come and see what we're trying to do on city council
Mhm.
and um, see what we can impact. But educating people, like, I'm super sorry, I'm not happy about the school district tax increase either, but the city council has no control over that.
Mhm.
And so helping people understand. I know the utilities, I didn't understand until a recent conversation with the mayor. Everybody gets really mad every August.
When they
Every
transfer from the
August.
general fund to the or for yeah, from oh, no, for from the utilities or whatever to the general fund.
Well,
Yeah.
every August people get their utility bill and they're like, "It went up and it's so high." I didn't know until recently that in July, Brigham City has to renegotiate their electricity rates with Rocky Mountain Power.
Mm.
And so every July, their rates go up. And then every August, we see that reflected in our power bills. And we're like, the city is trying to rob me again. And it's frustrating. Like, it's legitimately frustrating. But when I understood, like, part of this increase we see every August, one part is it's hot. So we're all running our AC and, those bills are just higher in the summer, but also there's this bump that the city hits every July where they have an increase and obviously
They pass that
that
on
gets
to the
passed
consumer.
on. The transferring to the general fund, my knowledge on this is still pretty limited, but again, another conversation with the mayor, he explained that some of the money that's coming in through the utilities is coming in through businesses. and they can pull that into the general fund to help cover stuff in the city so that they don't have to raise taxes. And so as a citizen, that part of me is like, just lower my utility bill, but then that means my tax bill probably has to go up, right? And so I don't know enough yet to say whether I think they're doing it right, but that gave me some understanding again for like, oh, this is why they have this money that they're transferring in. It's not necessarily money from the property owners. It's from places like Niagara
Mm.
that come in and they're tapped into our utilities. So there's a big chunk of money that comes in through them.
So there's more to it than meets the eye,
Yes.
and it sounds like you and many of the people in Brigham are like, "This looks sketchy. I need you to explain it to me so I don't think you're sketchy. If you
Yes.
can explain it to me so I can understand it, then we're probably good here."
I think we're
The
missing that
civilians
communication,
are taking a
education.
beating lately, and we're not inclined to give you the benefit of the doubt right now. So we need some explanation.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's figuring out what is the way that people access information right now. Because just throwing it on the website buried 4 pages in, and you have to find the link for the to watch the city council meeting because you can't get there in person, or, you know, finding the YouTube link to watch it after the fact. Those, like, I've looked for them and it's been hard to find. And I don't think a lot of people even know that they're out there. And so I think figuring out a way to help people find the information better, and maybe, I don't know, a Cliff Notes transcript or something after those meetings so that people know what's happened.
Yeah, that's something
But
actually that Phil and I had discussed in my first podcast, and I think that would be helpful. This thing in the back of my mind that I didn't bring up with him is that if I were in charge, I wouldn't want everybody looking over my shoulder all the time. And again, so this is my maybe not giving them the benefit of the doubt is how much of that is what do they say? Don't attribute to malice what can be described with ignorance. I think is what they say, right? I can't remember
yeah,
what that's called, but that's um, is it that? Is it ignorance? Is it malice? Is there maybe some other maybe I don't know if malice is the right word, but the desire not to have everybody looking over my shoulder every 5 seconds? Maybe the reason I hadn't fixed the problem that I'd known has existed.
yeah.
Does that
I
sound fair? Did you sound like you agree with that, or you're like, "I don't know, we're not
I
sure what's
mean,
going on yet."
I don't know, like, I can definitely see that side. Those city council meetings are probably faster, smoother, easier if nobody's there speaking out, right? And so, like, I get that.
Right, Parks and
But
Rec reference again.
I do know, because I've had a couple of conversations with the mayor,
Yeah.
that he's like, "We gotta do something different."
Mm,
And he's when I've been in a city council meeting with him, I feel like our city council has always been pretty open to, like, respond to questions, and so I don't think that they're overtly trying to, like, hide from us. I think that nobody's really taken the time and the energy to figure out a different way of putting information out there. In all fairness, I mean, this is a volunteer position, right? There's a little bit stipend that comes with it, but it's not, when you think about what people get paid to spend hours and hours and hours in meetings,
mhm.
because it's not just city council meetings, every city council member sits on different committees and they attend those meetings. So there's a lot of time that goes into this. So I can see where sometimes it's like, we know this is a problem. We just haven't found the time on top of our day job
Right, on
to
top of
figure out
the
those
volunteering
problems.
we do already and the day
Yes.
job, we
Yeah.
have to run the city, we don't have
Yeah.
time to go all through all this, and frankly, there hasn't been
A
a
push
taste
for
for
it.
it until now.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I think that conversation with you can move me a little more towards grace and a little less
Yeah.
pessimism. Maybe something like I don't know, if a not paid or honorary position or maybe a paid position. I don't know if it's gonna be worth putting another thing, but some sort of person to facilitate communication from the city to the electorate.
And there might already be somebody who kind of fills that role
They
that
might need to
we
replace
need
or
to.
get more time to do their job.
Yeah, or, it might just be that nobody said, "Hey, this is how we want you to do this." Like,
Right.
I don't know, like, I really don't know what has been tried in the past. I do know it's on the mayor's mind because he and I had a conversation about it. So, we'll see. He mentioned maybe doing a podcast, a mayor's podcast, to let people know what's happening
That's
in
good.
the
I was
city.
gonna want to interview him anyways. I'm gonna after I do
Yeah.
all of you guys being the candidates.
Oh,
Then I want to do the maybe everybody on city council and maybe something more regular.
yeah. I think he'd be super open to it. So, and if you're
I
doing
haven't
the
talked
work
about
instead of him, he might be like,
yeah.
"Hallelujah, yes, you run my podcast
Love
for
to
me."
do it. Yeah, okay, all right, that's good to know. One thing you were saying, and I wanted to make this distinction or see if you agree with this distinction, is something that I noticed, and again, I think I covered in my first podcast, is this idea of the separation of the city council and the I guess the school board and the tax increase, right? A concern I have, and I think I'm not alone here, is this idea of smart growth coming in here. If the
Yeah.
school system's already so heavily overloaded, why are we building so many apartments? We already have a bunch. And I know there's this blue heron thing I posted on my Facebook page for the podcast of this new development going, a subdivision going up
Oh, good.
across on 1100. It's crazy. And I don't want to get into that too much because we kind of covered that in the first one. But I want to know what your thoughts are on that connection. Is that something you think we could make a change on? They seem to say at the city council meeting when I brought up the issue is that by the time it comes up to city council to vote on rezoning of land or whatever it is, it's already kind of been down there. You should have been here a year ago, I guess,
Wait,
to bring up that comment.
I was in that same meeting, and that was really eye-opening to me, and that's this education piece that I'm like, our citizens need to know that by the time this ends up like, the zoning question ends up on the city council agenda, the decision's kind of already been made, and I think that's what we saw with the truth and taxation meetings too. All of the work has already been done, and this is the final step, and that's something that, I don't think I really understood before this, is there's a lot of groundwork that happens before, and so I would love for people to know better, like, "Hey, there's a planning commission meeting, and this is where the work needs to be done, is you need to show up there months before the final zoning question ends up on city council, because that's where your voice is going to be heard, and that's where the actual work is getting done." So that's why I'm like, we need this education and communication stuff to start happening. I have the same concern about our school district and the growth, because if they're already like, we're sinking, and then if we throw in 1,000 new homes on the west end of Brigham City, like, how do they manage it? That's one of the things I would love to see better communication between the city council and the school district.
Yeah.
The school district is just barely starting to try and foster that. They had a meeting a couple months ago that they invited all of the leadership of Box Elder County. Sadly, 4 people showed up to that. Mayor Bott. Yeah, no, well, it was like Mayor Bott, the mayor of Tremonton, the mayor of Deweyville, and the mayor of Garland. They're the
Oh,
only
the
ones that showed
mayors.
up. Yeah, it was the mayors because it was supposed to be they wanted to talk with city leadership and kind of start having a conversation between the school district and the cities. Because if the city knows that they've got all this growth incoming and they don't tell the school district, how does the school district plan for it? So that I guess what I took away from that meeting is historically there hasn't been great conversation. There hasn't been a lot of communication, and both sides are working on improving that.
Probably hasn't needed to be,
I don't I, I don't know. There's a big development that went in that's it's in the finishing stages up by where I live, and they had the meetings for that. It was 2020 or 2021 because it was all done on Zoom because
Mm.
can't meet in person. And somebody brought up the question, you're putting in all these townhomes. That means young families and kids. Where are they going to go to school? And the planning commission said, it's not our problem.
There it is.
And I was like, oof. And that was again, my first taste of like,
That's how we
wait, we don't we aren't working together? And they said that's a school district issue, it's not a city issue. So honestly, it's not our thing to figure out how the schools are going to make it work. And I was like, wait a second, our community needs to do better. So I appreciate that it's taken 5 years, but somebody's trying to make that happen. I don't know how they assign the committee seats, but I would love to sit on that committee that works with the school district so that we're getting that communication back and forth. It looks like that development is moving forward. I don't know how the school district manages that. It's a little bit nerve-wracking.
But it's
Personally
process.
foresee a bond showing up on our things in a couple more years. I think when the current bond falls off, they'll bring another bond to us.
Which kind of makes sense. It feels like you're just like, let's build a bunch of stuff and figure out how to do it. What we need to do next.
Yeah,
and then we can just kinda shove the bomb down your throat. Because what are you gonna do with all these kids that have to go to school? They're all going to Lakeview or whatever
yeah,
it is, or
yeah,
Golden Spike or whatever. So, again, I appreciate this information because it helps bring my temperature down a little
yeah.
bit. But
Well,
those are the conversations that need to be happening. It sounds like they are, which is good, but if we could,
yeah,
definitely be good.
yeah, and again, that's why I think we've got to figure out how to communicate better with the citizens of Brigham City so that people understand, like, this is what's going on. My dream would be that Brigham City doesn't change at all, right? That we stay this, like, really cute, friendly agricultural community, and somehow people's families magically find homes without ever building another house or apartment in the community. But I also recognize that's not realistic, right? And all of the growth on the Wasatch Front is starting to push north. It's already hit Cache Valley hard. It's hit Weber and Davis.
Green tree mountains start to grow.
Yeah, where I mean, it's here and it's happening, and so I think the real trick is figuring out how do we do it in a way that helps preserve the heritage and the feel of the community, but that we still manage the growth that's got to happen.
As far as your vision, looking at kind of what you just said there, what is your vision for the city, and what if the state's plan, you're at odds with where the state's at? I've been told, and I again brought this up in the last podcast, is that in a lot of cities within Utah, the state says you got to have this much, I don't know, high density or whatever it is. Pick
Yeah.
anything really. You got to do this thing. If you don't do it, well, there's funds tied to that, and so you're gonna have to figure out what to do without those funds. Is that a battle that you fight, or how would you navigate that situation?
I don't have a lot of knowledge in this particular piece, but I really would love to see this community feel that Brigham City has maintained. I'd love to see how we can, like, I love Main Street. My kids think it's the greatest place. Like, if they're like, "We wanna hang out with our friends. Can we go walk Main Street?"
Right, like going
That's,
to the
like, the
mall, right?
coolest thing, right? But I love that that's what they wanna do and that they feel safe and that I feel safe sending them out to walk along Main Street after school or whenever. So I love that small town feel that we've been able to preserve. I love the leaning into our heritage that especially our, Chamber of Commerce has tried to do, like, really educating people about, like, this is the history of Brigham City. We've got a cool little city museum that has stuff about the history. Those things are awesome. I would really love to see us preserve and lean into all of that. Figuring out how to maintain the growth. Again, a new learning thing for me. Everybody's like, how do we save our agricultural land? Box Elder County is the biggest county in the state. We have a lot of agriculture. It's really, really important to our communities. How do we have affordable housing and agriculture? And I hate this answer, but the answer is we pull the people into the cities, which means higher density housing. We can't all have an acre and keep all the people in the city. If we all have our big lots, then we push out into the agricultural land and eat that up. But there's a balance. There's got to be a balance. Yeah, and I do appreciate, again, in a conversation with the mayor, this huge development that's coming west of town. From what I understand, the city went ahead and they have gone in with the developers on figuring out how to structure that development so that the city has a say in what happens there.
What do you mean by that? Is that,
Uh,
like, how much of it's apartments, how much is it townhomes, or
they're
something
helping
else?
pay for the planning of the development.
Oh,
That
so it's not
that's
been
my
done yet.
understanding.
I
I
saw
don't
the I
know.
saw different than that. That's not
I
in stone is what it sounds like.
Well, I think, and again, like, I don't have all the information here. This is just my understanding of what's happening there. I think they've got the land designated and they've got some basic structures in place, but I think they've been working on this for a lot longer than we've known that they've been working on it,
Well,
and
it's a
that's
council meeting.
well, yeah, and that's that piece of not only the city council, but the planning commission, the zoning, like, there's all of these other meetings that happen that get us to the point that it comes before the city council. And so I think they've been working on it for a while. My understanding is the city decided to invest in helping on the planning side so that they had some say on what this community is gonna look like, where things are gonna be, how dense certain parts of the housing is. They have in their master plan, we wanna keep housing here, we wanna do, business development in this part of the city, and so I can appreciate the intelligence of that process of saying, "We wanna say in what this looks like instead of just leaving it up to developers, and so we're gonna put some money on the table to help make sure that we have some decision-making power in this." So I think that's one way to approach the growth is, like, we make sure that we're part of the decision making. Again, I don't have all the answers though. I would be really sad to see our community turn into all of these places that have just grown and bled into each other. Yeah, yeah. I'm from Logan originally, that's where I was born and raised, and when I go over there, I'm like, "I'm a little sad, this is where Logan used to end, and this used to be this beautiful farmland, or this is where the horses were." There was a horse pasture by my grandma's house that is now a housing development, and it wasn't even that big, and there's, like, 40 homes on it now, and I'm like, "I'm so sad." You know, we I think we all want things to stay the same because that's our comfort zone. But I think we need to recognize that that's not what's happening, and so we have to figure out how do we move forward in a way that helps preserve the feel of our community.
I refuse to stop fighting, but I appreciate that. That's good.
Yeah. I think it's figuring out which battles are worth fighting,
Yeah, that's fair.
right? And which ones at what point do we recognize, like, the houses are coming, so where do we put them? So that it has the least impact on our agriculture or
Yeah, yeah. Take a
yeah,
defensive strategy as far as that goes, and
yeah.
deal with some unfortunate realities. I think that's fair. But, well, since we're on this, let's go with you had mentioned strengthening community connection in your little. You kind of touched on it a little bit. Is that all kind of communication between city council and the citizenry, or is there? You had also mentioned kind of like clubs and that kind of stuff. Is there? What do you mean by that? I'll just let you say. What do you mean by that?
I think it's gotta be multi-pronged, right? No one thing is gonna work for everyone in our community. So I think the communication is a huge, huge piece, just so that people know what is going on in our community. I think those clubs and organizations are a critical piece. When you show up to something like Peach Days and you realize, like, "Wait, these people are doing stuff in our community." And a lot of times, if you're not engaged with what's happening, you don't even realize that there's stuff going on. That Rotary what was it? The splash pad. Rotary raised the money to help fund the splash pad that has been such a great addition to our community. So many families use that in the summer.
It's nice to have something free that you can
Yeah,
just be like, oh, let's go splash pad again.
absolutely, and a lot of people utilize that. And so we have groups like that that are doing really good things in our community, and so I think working with them and figuring out how to strengthen those connections and encourage people, get involved with these groups. You maybe don't want to run for city council, but go join a group or start a group. If there's not a group that is meeting your needs in our community, start a group.
Be the guy,
Yeah.
be the change. What,
Yeah. So like
Gandhi?
so I
Let me see it.
maybe I know it's one of those things. It's probably been attributed to who knows how many people, and so who knows where it originated at this point.
You heard it here, Don.
'Kay, I'm going with it.
I have no idea. Sorry, keep going. So
No,
those kind of things. So it's kind of both. Okay.
yeah, and there are things I think sometimes we think, if I'm gonna start something, it has to be really big. It doesn't. I run a little women's circle here in town. Our average attendance is like 5 women, but it's hitting a need for those 5 women that other things in the community aren't hitting, and so I think
What is that? When you
it's
said little women, I was
it
imagining little people. So
no, 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 no. It's a women's circle, which is just we meet once a month, and it's for women, and we get together and do different things. Usually, it's kind of mm, like a we've done all kinds of stuff. So we've done some art stuff. A lot of it has to do with, like, processing emotional stuff. So we've done some
there's like
art
women hanging
projects.
out together doing things that they think are fun.
Yeah, or we've done, like, a breath work session, we've done some meditation stuff, we've done some journaling, just some things that help meet some of the emotional needs of people in the community. It's not a very big thing, I haven't advertised it heavily. It's just an example of something that I saw a need for,
Mm.
and I started, and, so I think when we think our community needs something and somebody should do something, be the somebody, do something. Even if it's 4 or 5 people that are coming, Brigham City has a crafters group that I haven't ever attended, but I found them online and I'm like, this is cool. They're meeting at parks once or twice a month and they're getting together and sharing information and doing crafts together and cool thing. It's meeting a need that people have in our community and bringing people together. So, if you see a need, like, don't be afraid to start something. Whether it's a podcast or a group or whatever, go for it.
What experience do you have that would make you a good city council member?
That's so I don't have, like, political experience, right? I'm active in my church community, and so I've had various leadership opportunities there, helping organize and run things. Like I mentioned, I run a women's circle here in town. I used to live in South Carolina. There, I helped organize a kind of a parenting group, and we had a fairly good membership, again, meeting a need that we saw in our local community. Me and some other women got together and did that. So I've had this experience in, like, bringing people together, helping organize them, getting stuff started where there's a need in the community. So that's where a lot of my experience lies. I'm fairly inquisitive too, and so there have been a few things in our community that I'm like, what is going on here? And so, I
Dating.
yeah, so I do a little bit deeper dive and that's where people saying, "You should run for office." I'm like, "I just started asking questions about, this thing. I guess nobody else was asking those questions." And so that's something else that I bring to the table is, I like to dig for some of the deeper information and figure out like what is actually happening here? What do we need to be doing? What are the questions that we haven't been asking or that, people have glossed over. So yeah, that's kind of what I bring to this position.
Fair enough. I mean, I always think like not having experience in politics seems like it's as much of an asset as it is a liability. So that's fair. I think that's a
That's
fair answer.
I mean, honestly, like I'm relatively unconnected, right? So I'm not in somebody's pocket. Like that, and I think that's an asset. I'm not connected to anybody's special interests or anything like that, and hopefully people see that as an asset instead of a liability. I don't have an in with anybody who's super important in our city, so I am starting fresh.
There you go. All right. So it sounds like you've been like, attending city council meetings via Zoom. Is that right? Or watching these YouTube videos later?
I've done just a tiny bit of that. I will be super honest, I have not been great at engaging with the city council stuff. I've been to a few things and it's always been really eye-opening. I've tried to chat with the mayor about a couple things like I mentioned. Yeah, I've been to a few school board meetings, so I'm just trying to kind of figure out like what is already happening in our community? Where do I fit in this? Where can I help? What are the problems that I'm seeing? Where are the breakdowns? And that's kind of my jumping off point here.
Right. Got to start somewhere. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. Okay. And here on your election page, you mentioned you bring a fresh perspective, new eyes. Do you want to elaborate on?
I think I think some of that comes from my background. So, I was born and raised in Logan, grew up there, but my parents are German immigrants, and I didn't realize until after leaving home how much that changed how I was raised and how it gave me a different viewpoint on the world. I did spend a year as an exchange student in Germany my junior year of high school.
Speak German?
I do. Yeah. I mean, it's easy because I heard it growing up, but when I got to Germany, then it was like, it's time to actually speak it. That was a whole other thing,
Big
but
swim.
for sure. And then after high school, I did something called AmeriCorps, and AmeriCorps is this government organization, kind of like a domestic Peace Corps. It's a service organization, and it has different branches. The one that I did was the National Civilian Community Corps, which is patterned after the CCC of the Depression era. So we were literally put on campuses. At the time, there were 5 campuses in the US, and then broken into teams and sent out to work on projects that were all service-oriented projects. So I did stuff like work on Habitat for Humanity homes. Um, I worked in impoverished schools. I helped redo the outside of a historic building in Florida. So a wide range of things that I got to do that year and in a whole different part of the country that's really different from Utah. I was in the southeast region of the US, based out of Charleston, South Carolina. And so very culturally different than Logan, Utah was. But I think that time in Germany, having immigrant parents, spending time in the South has given me kind of a broader range than people who have just kind of stayed in Utah. And I hope that's an asset. I hope people see that as an asset.
It sounds like it. That sounds like experience that answered the other question a little bit too, is what experience do you have? Well, you have experience outside of Utah, seeing
Yeah.
the world a little bit to see how the
Yeah.
world's like outside of here to
And
have
I
that experience.
I didn't realize that some of that made me really different until when I left and went to South Carolina after high school. I had some people who were like, "You're not from Utah." And I literally had to break out my driver's license and be like, "Here's my license from Utah," because they didn't believe me, and they're like, "You're not like other people that we've met from Utah." So yeah, I bring kind of a little bit more of an outside perspective because I've had some different experiences. Hopefully, that helps me be more understanding and more empathetic to people who don't always feel like they fit in
Mhm.
Brigham City because we are kind of a monoculture here, and in some ways that's really nice, but in other ways it can be a hard place for people to be. So I think that gives me a little bit of a different perspective. And like I mentioned, I'm not I have a small business, but I'm not like a big business owner with a gajillion dollars in my pocket. I'm not, tied into all of these industry groups or any of that stuff. I'm honestly your average mom who has tried my best to raise good humans that can be productive members of our society. I think that's probably been my most important role in life is to just raise great kids that are great people. My oldest is 22, my youngest is 8. So I've got kind of a span there, but they're so far so good. They seem to be decent humans. So
Yeah, having been a child once myself, I know there are all sorts of things that can change in a year.
yes, yes, there's still a lot of room for things to go sideways, but so far we're doing pretty good.
You at
Um,
least have a 20-year-old to be like, "Hey, this is the work I do.
yeah, yeah,
Let's see if I can replicate it."
yeah. So far they're all, I think, nice people, and that's one of my big things is I'm like, I want you to go out every day and be kind to those people around you. If you are kind to others, that in and of itself is probably gonna be my greatest accomplishment as a parent, if you can be a decent human to other people.
Yeah, and help make others.
Yes. Yep.
Perfect. Well, I have another question. This one I want to be consistent with what I've had in mind. Where do you get your moral bearing?
That's a great question. I think a lot of that comes from my upbringing, having a variety of life experiences, seeing a variety of different life situations. I think that plays a heavy role. My religious beliefs are at the very core of that. There are certain things that are just right and wrong, certain things are just truth. But like I mentioned with my kids, one of my core beliefs is kindness, empathy, and service. Service is a huge thing to me. And so I think that something that we are really struggling with in our society right now is learning how to disagree and still do that kindly and in a civil way, and that's really important to me. And so I think all of those play into my personal moral bearings.
And kind of addendum to that is Brigham City is a religious community, as I mentioned. Do you have any words for Brigham City as you seek to represent them in city council?
I'm not really sure that I understand what you're looking for here.
Just advice, how that moral bearing what I was trying to get at, and maybe that's just my bad question, but it's I think that many of the problems that our country and society are running into is because we're not turning to God. And I think that that's an important aspect, even in the city council, of turning to Him for answers. And so, yes, that's kind of what I was trying to get at there. Is if I guess how does that, if at all, impact how you'll represent the people?
Yeah. Like I said, I think there are certain things that, you know, when we look at government, we have our Constitution to guide us, and that is very much a God-centered document, that we have inalienable rights given by God, that those are not government rights, that those are God-given rights. I firmly believe in that. I see that in Brigham City, we do have a primary religion that a majority of people participate in. I also think it's fantastic if you pay attention how many other church groups and spiritual groups there are. We have a surprising array here in Brigham City, more than I think people realize. So I strongly recommend that people, whatever it is, find it and participate in it and find something that gives you a moral bearing. I see a lot of value in recognizing that diversity is a benefit and not something that hinders us, as long as we're willing to figure out how to work together.
Mhm.
And I think that goes on a religious basis too, right? That we don't all have to be the same religion. We don't all have to have the exact same belief structure. But I do think that we all have to figure out how to have respect for each other. And I think that holds true in a city council setting, that even though I participate in the majority religion in the community, shouldn't me being on city council shouldn't give me a place to create problems for people who don't share that same religious belief system, if that makes sense.
No,
Like,
absolutely.
I want people to feel.
We're not gonna kick you out, right? We're not gonna run you out of
Yeah.
town.
Well, and I want
When
people
you're
to
part of the
feel like,
community.
yeah, I want people to feel like they have a fair opportunity here in Brigham, whether they fit that majority religion, whether they look the same as everyone else, whether they have the same whatever identity, that this is still a safe community for them. I think that's really important, regardless of if we have the exact same religious beliefs,
Right.
right? That that I think respect and kindness need to be a community culture for us. Yeah, I think that's.
That I think you got at what I was trying to get at. Is that just
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring religion into this in some capacity. Like
I mean, there's
wanted
no.
that to be, I think, an important guiding principle in whoever's running, not as a religious test of who we're going to vote for,
Yeah.
but I think it's an important factor.
There's no denying that my religious beliefs definitely guide my moral compass, and that will absolutely play a role in some way, shape, or form in how I participate in the community, in the city council. But I hope that I can do that in a way that people see that it's not about my religious beliefs, it's about the community, and how do we make Brigham City a great community, a safe place, a place where people feel like they belong and they can participate in our community, whether they look or practice religion the same way everyone else does, if that makes sense. Like, I want it to be a good place for everyone.
Thank you. And then before we close this thing off, anything else you'd like to discuss? Anything you wanted to bring up that you're like, oh, I hope you asked this question because I prepared for it and I want to go for it. Like, I don't know. I don't know how this works, but
This feels
anything
like the question at the end of an interview where they're like, "Do you have any
any
questions?"
questions? Do you have any questions for me?
And they're always like,
See who's voting.
yeah, they're always like, "Don't let that opportunity go unwasted." Yeah.
That's not what I meant, but I don't know.
No, I think what I want people to know is, like, I really want to be here to represent you, the citizens of Brigham City. I want people to feel like I'm somebody that they can reach out to and that will hear them. I want people to feel like I can help them understand what is happening in our city, because, like I mentioned before, I think that's where a lot of the breakdown is people just that communication isn't working really great, And so a lot of times people see something happen and they're like, "What is that? Why did you do that? I hate that." And it's like, let's back up and understand there's a backstory here. And just like you expressed, like, having some understanding about some of the stuff that's happening behind the scenes, it's like,
These aren't
I'm
good guys.
yeah, and it's like, I'm not so angry about that because I understand how we got to this decision here because there were, 20 decisions that happened before, and now it makes sense to me. And so I really hope that that's what I can bring to city council is helping people understand what is going on here. Why are we doing the things that we're doing in the city? And how do I participate better as a citizen of the community? You know, where can I have my voice heard in the most effective way possible?
Thank you. All right. Well, thanks again for being on the show. Where can people find you? You had mentioned Facebook. That was one thing that we talked about. I wasn't able to find her on Facebook because she's got a different middle initial. So if you want people want to support you, if they want to find you to have more conversation with you, how would they?
Probably there's two ways you can find me on Facebook. On Facebook, I'm Christine K. Nielsen. The K threw him off because, yeah, it's
On the website.
yeah, yeah. One is my actual middle initial, one is my maiden name middle initial. I didn't even think about that throwing people off.
Fair. I know when I got married, my wife had to change the name. The whole process.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, if you wanna find me on Facebook, I'm Christine K. Nielsen. My email for this campaign thing, let me look it up because I'm gonna say it wrong.
And I'll add this to the show notes.
Yes, that would
So
be
we'll put that in
fantastic.
there for you.
Yeah, because they had us make a separate email, and so that's the thing that you don't want my personal email. I'm not great at checking that one. Okay. Yeah. So my email for this, if you wanna email me, and that's actually been I've had some people reach out to me that way. That's been really great. So please do that, and I will respond to you. It's Christine Nielsen 22@gmail.com. So I'll
Nielsen 2298.
Yep, I will go ahead and give that to Caleb so that he can add that to the show notes so that you can find me there. I'd love to have a conversation with you if you have questions or concerns that you want me to be aware of. Reach out. I'd love to chat.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, everybody. Remember, get informed, go vote, and turn to the Lord in all things. Thanks again for being on the podcast.
Thanks for the opportunity, Caleb.
Here's hope.